Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. In the video today I'm going to be demonstrating a master study of charcoal drawing by John Singer Sargent. I've been doing a lot of these in the last few days, so this is my sketchbook here. So yeah, I've been kind of playing around with trying to replicate his style using a few different methods and materials, and I've found, I guess, something that works for me, and I've been really enjoying doing these studies, so I just wanted to share it in a video demonstration in case anyone else is interested in watching or having a go themselves. So these are the different drawings I've been doing over the last few days. I've tried a few different methods, a few different pencils. So that's a Wolf's Carbon pencil I used for that drawing there. You can see in a previous picture as well, I put on a dark ground. So yeah, I've tried a few different methods, but the one I'm going to be demonstrating today is the method I like the best, and I've been doing the best. So yeah, I hope you find it useful. These drawings take about 1.5 hours. I've sped up a section as well, so it's closer to kind of 45 minutes, so hopefully it shouldn't be too boring to watch. These pictures, I do have a book of his studies, but I actually find majority of these pictures using the app Pinterest. I would recommend it. I think once you find a few, then you can follow the kind of rabbit hole of recommendations, and there's actually quite a lot of good high resolution images out there that you can use for your studies. This one isn't the best that I'm using today, so it's not the best resolution, but I do quite like the picture, so I'm going to have a go anyway. I'm drawing on my Moleskine notebook, so it's about 15 centimetres by 25 centimetres, has nice thick paper, thick and smooth paper, so I quite like it. It seems to produce quite a good result. The pencils I'm using today, so I've got a General's charcoal pencil in 4B. This is one I like the best. You have to treat them nicely. You have to be careful when you're sharpening them. I do like these long nibs that you can see here because I think it gives quite a good result. It means you can kind of tone the paper using the edge of your pencil. The light areas and the erasing, I use a Mono Zero eraser by Tombow. Again, this is a retractable eraser, so it's really good and it works well for kind of picking out the highlights in the hair. So yeah, I use that quite a lot. Further on in the video, you'll see I do a bit of smudging, so it's not something I do early on, but I do like to do a bit of smudging sort of further on through the drawing. You can use a brush or a finger, but I like these smudge sticks. They work the best in my view. And then I've also got a kneaded putty eraser. I don't use it too much, but it's good to have on hand for kind of cleaning up mucky finger marks and things. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So yeah, I mentioned the notebook I've got. I think this is just quite handy for me. I do use a fixative spray to keep the pictures in place. Alternatively, you can use some tissue paper or something to stop the pictures from smudging into each other. So yeah, I think I would recommend doing that as well, because I mean this charcoal does make a little bit of a mess if you're not careful. So I'd say the only problem with working in this nice little notebook is it is quite difficult. You're working at a very small size. You can see the eyes, the nose and the mouth in this picture are very small, so it's quite difficult to get the level of detail that you might want to have if you're working in a picture maybe 4 times the size or twice the size. So I think you just have to accept that you're not going to perhaps get the level of accuracy around the features that you might want, and make sure you keep your pencil sharp. I think that will help. That's something I forgot, as you'll find out later on. Right, let's get started. Hope you enjoy the video.
So yeah, the first thing I do is actually get everything in the right place. Accuracy is pretty important. I have a bit of a weird method where because this is a charcoal pencil and the marks aren't that easy to erase, I kind of go through and kind of map things out with little lines. I don't think this is a recommended approach. I think I only do it because I can visualize, almost mentally put this over here and spot what I've done wrong. I think it's probably absolutely fine if you want to grid things up or work in, spend some time working in pencil first to get everything in the right place before erasing. So yeah, I'm just trying to get everything in the right place really. Yeah, I'm working from quite far away. I'm working quite small, so just trying to map where everything is in this chat space. He's got very hooded eyes. what I think is so great about Sargent's work, and you don't really realise it until you start doing a master study, is that I think he does a bit of caricaturing these faces. I did wonder if he does these before he does the paintings and he exaggerates the character in the face just so he can really kind of pin down the person. And you might look at a face that he's drawn and make a snap judgment about this person is happy or this person is sad, but once you start drawing their face in detail, you realise like maybe the eyes, like they've got sad eyes or they've got a happy mouth, and there's a lot of like, I think there's a lot of kind of micro emotions going into the way Sargent draws faces. So you might have someone who's looking pretty serene, but actually when you look at some of their facial features in isolation, you spot there's actually a lot more going on there, and maybe that's what makes his drawing so fascinating, I guess. Yeah. I think sometimes you don't really notice some of these things until you're actually trying to replicate it. A lot of people do master studies of his paintings. I would love to do that. I think for me though, it's an element of time. So these drawings take me about 1.5 hours maybe. So in 1.5 hours I can get something that looks pretty convincing. I'm pretty sure that the paintings would take me 6 or 7 hours. Yeah. So I'm just trying to get these distances the same. So I've mapped out his face in the page where I want it to be. And then I'm kind of placing his features on his face, kind of correcting as I go. Like I say, I mean, there's so many different ways you can do a structural block-in, you can look up Loomis head method. I think whatever works to get everything as accurate as possible. What I will be showing you in a second is once you think that maybe you've got something fairly accurate, then there is a way to check your work. So I'll just show you that in a second, actually, once I've got this kind of initial block in, and it's probably not going to be as accurate as I normally do it because I'm talking at the same time, and despite being of the female persuasion, I am not a very good multitasker. So yeah, this method usually works a little bit better for me than this. Yeah, but I mean, it's fine. I'll show you in a second. I'll show you how I check likeness. This dude has got amazing eyebrows. They curl almost all the way around. I wonder who this dude was. He's got a roll neck on. I didn't know that was a thing back then. Maybe he's some kind of actor or something. Ballet dancer. Sargent did a lot of society portraits, but somehow this guy doesn't strike me as a society gent. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. He's got a very long neck. His amazing bow lips. I think I maybe got his mouth a little bit low down. So I do a lot of these little scratchy lines. I'm not really committing at this stage. If I get something in the wrong place, it's really easy to move it. So if I lock things down too early, I get attached. And it's difficult to. He's got this line going almost straight down there. Cool nose. Yeah, I think I've got this distance here wrong. So, yeah, so you can see the corner of his eye there. His nose should be further up, I think. Maybe there. So this 100 is pretty good for this as well. I mean, General's charcoal pencils, they do erase pretty well, but I find it's good to keep your touch light at this stage. Let's maybe move the mouth up a little bit as well. With the method I'm doing, I think it's good to have lots of lines in there, and I'll show you why in a second. Yeah, see, he's got quite a long chin, so I think it's more like that, even slightly higher. What I'm doing is I'm flicking my eyes backwards and forwards so I can see what I'm looking at. I think that's about it. Let me just make a guess on his shoulders. This eye here, his eyes, he's almost got like a slightly droopy left eye. I don't know if that's what the guy looks like or Sargent kind of muffed it up a bit, but it's so much harder doing this from real life than from like a drawing that someone else has done. So normally I'd work on this a little bit more. I think I've done things wrong, so I think there's something wrong with the nose and the mouth that's not quite right. Maybe the eyes. So I've got stuff roughly mapped in. As I say, normally it would take quite a long time doing this, so, well, not quite a long time, but longer than I have done. I just wanted to give a quick demonstration of how I check my work, just so anyone watching at home can see how I do it. So I use an app called the Overlay app. Sorry, I normally do this on my phone, so apologies. It's usually a lot easier. So the Overlay app, I have it on my phone. So normally all I have is my phone here, my drawings. So I don't need this bulky iPad at the moment. Now I'm using the phone to record the video, so you're gonna have to bear with me. So it's called the Overlay app. I'll put a link in the box below. I've got the free version, you don't need premium. So all you do is you choose the background, and the background is obviously the photo reference, and then the foreground, you just want to take a picture of your work. So I'm just going to take a quick picture, making sure it's all lined up. So hopefully you can see this. So I've just taken this photo, and then all I'm doing now is I'm positioning it and lining it over my drawing. So sometimes you can twist it. So sometimes I twist things a little bit. Other times I get the face pretty bang on, and then you pinch it to zoom. So I'm finding this fairly easy because my underdrawing is fairly accurate. I say fairly accurate, it's not as good as it normally is, but things are roughly in the right place, so it's not too difficult for me to check everything. And then what you can do is you can look at the transparency here. So let's have a look. So the face shape I've got pretty good. So I have got his face pretty accurate. Around the chin here, maybe this needs to come in a touch here. I've put his ear too low down. I make that mistake so much. I tried to stop myself from doing it. I even measured across like that, but I must have gone diagonally because I've got the ear in the wrong place. So mentally I now just need to bump that up a little bit. I've got his hair right, so I've got that right. I've got his part right. I just have to remember which marks are the accurate ones. So obviously his parting is actually this final line here, so probably want to go in and erase these two marks here in case they're distracting. In terms of his eyes, so I moved his mouth around a little bit, you can see. So I initially had the mouth further down, and then I corrected it and moved it upwards, and you can see in moving upwards actually I've now got it in the correct place pretty much. I've kind of lifted up on the right, so I just need to go in and erase some of these distracting lines really. What else? So his nose, pretty good. I moved it up a little bit, actually it was kind of in the right place. but the marks as a whole kind of seem to represent where it is. I maybe just need to address this line here, which makes it seem like his nose is wider than it is, and maybe just make sure I bring that in a little. His eyebrows I've got kind of right, I've got his hooded eyes right, his eyeball is in the right place. Yeah, I've got his inner eye in the right place, here, and here, and here, and something weird going on here. I don't know why I've made that mark like that, but maybe because I thought his eye was originally up there, but then I look like I've kind of moved it down a little bit, so it's actually correct where it is there. So yeah, and I've got his neck's the right width. I often get this mistake here, I don't get the shoulder quite right, so that maybe needs to bump up a little bit. And then I've kind of got the line of his jacket mostly right, and I've got this mostly right. So actually, I kind of ragged on myself a little bit, but that's pretty correct. It just needs a bit of tweaking. So that's how I get the accuracy. Obviously, if your underdrawing isn't particularly accurate, it's going to be quite difficult to do the overlay. I don't think you should feel bad about doing this several times until you're happy with the likeness. I think if you don't have the crucial things in the right place, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to a lot of effort in doing the drawing, only to find out when you get to the end that it just doesn't look satisfactory. So if that's something that bothers you, then I think that's something to fix early on, and don't be ashamed of it. I can just see I've got the line of his shadow of his cheek. I normally kind of draw this in a little bit, so maybe I should have drawn that in to get it right. But yeah, so that's how I get the likeness. So what you'll see me now is I'll go in and correct my underdrawing, and then I'll start building up the drawing. What I might do is just speed this up a little bit so you don't have to see me doing it in real time. It does take me 1.5 hours to do the process end to end mostly, so I'm pretty sure that you don't want to watch me doing it in real time, so I will save you the pain.
So here I'm working on deciding which lines are the ones I want to keep and erase, and building up those little soft lines into something a bit more decisive. I'm still using the pen quite gently. I'm not applying too much pressure. Just trying to make some decisions about which lines I want to keep. It's interesting watching it back now because I can see that actually I think maybe it's perhaps a distraction of the filming, but after looking at the picture, I think I've almost forgotten which lines I should have kept and which lines I should have got rid of. So I think that's why I spent a bit of time later on the film fixing things. So here I'm just sort of skipping back to the app where I'm doing the overlay. You actually kind of missed it out on the other recording because it was kind of chopped off at the bottom, but you can use the slider along the bottom once you've got the pictures positioned to fade in and out the base picture so you can see what you need to fix. So anytime I'm not really sure what I'm looking at, I'll cut back to that and use that as a bit of a crutch. We're in. So I'm not applying too much pressure. If the colour's darker, I'm kind of going over my lines a bit more. I always keep that pencil sharp. Again, I was a bit lax there, perhaps because of the video recording, and I didn't keep my pencil sharp, so I think I didn't get some of the preciseness in the lines that I wanted, but it's fine. I mean, it's something you can kind of work on and get there eventually. Just where there's kind of a softer tone, applying the pencil less aggressively so you can build up a little bit of tone. And I'm almost going for a hatching mark. You'll see in a minute when I start blending that you can blend out those lines, so initially trying to build up the tone with some hatching that you can then smooth out and blend. It's sped up. It's double speed, so I think this phase of the blending and the smudging took me around an hour. Oh, not even that long. Maybe 45 minutes. So usually I get sort of 15-20 minutes for the underdrawing, depending on, how lucky I am the first time round. Maybe 45, maybe like half an hour of just kind of building up the tone, smudging, and then like another 20 minutes of kind of refinements. So perhaps slightly over 1.5 hours. And I do keep saying it's a quick demonstration. Like, that's the thing I keep saying, I can't stop myself from saying. But yeah, I mean, it depends. It's all comparative, isn't it? I think 1.5 hours is pretty quick for something like this. A refined pencil drawing can take sort of 3 or 4 hours, or fine charcoal drawing. So I would say this is more of a sketch rather than, I guess, a very well developed, finished artwork. So yeah, just building up those dark areas before I go into the mid-tones. One of the problems with the likeness is, and I get this sometimes when I've been drawing too many women, I kind of over-exaggerate the feminine aspects of the face, and then that kind of ends up, although everything's mostly in the right place, it looks a little bit off. So I can see now I've kind of nipped in his jawline and smoothed that out a little bit, and his forehead is a little bit narrow, and I got the shadow line a little bit wrong, and all those elements combined to make him look a little bit more feminine. I was able to go in and fix that a little bit, but I think that's why, despite a lot of the stuff being almost in the right place, you still not capture the likeness. And I think that really goes to show just how little room you have for getting things wrong with portraits. Just a fraction of a millimetre out here or there can just completely change the lightness. So yeah, it's just a challenge, but who knows what this guy looks like. I've got it on the wonk so it's sideways. I think that's because I'm just checking specific things. So I'll look and say, oh, I think the top lip is maybe a little bit low, so then I'll go check the overlay app and just confirm my suspicions and then adjust. So I don't really need it, it's just a comfort blanket really, I think. But it's good to have as a reference, and I think that's why my drawing has progressed the way it has done in the past year or two, because I've been very mindful and kind of really worked on improving my ability to capture a likeness accurately. I think I can over focus on it sometimes, but I find the more comfortable I am in the process of capturing the likeness, the more I can let go of the reins a little bit and allow myself to, I guess, play with it a little bit. But I'm getting there. It's a progress, or a process even. So spending quite a lot of time working on the lips. They were bugging me. He was looking a little bit feminine and I couldn't figure out why, so I kind of focused on fixing the lips. Lips are a little bit tricky, so the bow of the mouth has got to be in the right place so that the face overall is convincing, so I got that wrong at first, and then just trying to capture the right shape of the lips and the right amount of tone is very tricky. I've perhaps overstated some of the outlines in there, or by putting them in and then fixing them a few times, the outline of the lips is overstated, and that always just looks a bit rubbish. So I'm just spending quite a lot of time working on that. But then, when I've worked on an area for too long, then I like to move away and work on another area and then come back, because I think, especially with these charcoal pencils, you can overwork things. So I think sometimes you just need fresh eyes. So
work on an area for a bit, but when you kind of start finding yourself noodling and you don't really even know what you're looking at anymore, then just skip over and do a different area that you feel a bit more comfortable with. Now, I'm not sure if it's the quality of the picture or just Sargent's style, but his pictures are quite good for doing master studies of, because it's quite polarised colour, so there's lots of whites and dark blacks, and there's not many mid-tones at all. He does have pictures with more mid-tones in it, but a lot of these style pictures there's very few mid-tones, so they really stand out where he's got some blended mid-tones. So I do try and stop myself from working to the mid-tones too much. I try and get the darks and the lights in correct first before I kind of go into the mid-tones too much. Because some of those mid-tones are smudged in and some of those mid-tones are hatched in, so it's getting the right combination of both is, I think, quite important. So just building in the background now. Quite a few of these, he has the background quite dark and rough. I think that's to exaggerate. Where he's got a face that's very well lit, that's just to exaggerate the face, really, to make it stand out. So I'm just really like hatching in the background quite roughly with quite heavy pen marks or charcoal pencil marks, as you can see. I will go back in and smudge that out when I get to the smudging stage. It's really amazing how small changes can have a big impact. So I talked about me making the face look a little bit more feminine, and that's just what I've done there as one of the errors that helped that. I just nipped his jaw in a little bit, and that's meant that he looks, it's made him look different and maybe slightly more feminine than he was before. But I'm also fixing one of the issues, which is making his forehead a bit wider. I really brought that in by accident, I think, again, I'm fixing it now a little bit. So doing that thing where I kind of almost follow the wrong line. I think that's why it's important once you've got that initial drawing, is to actually, if you spot something that's wrong, then just get rid of it straight away. And I probably should have done a little bit more of that before I dived into building up the tone. So still working on bits. Again, I think my focus now is just to make him look a bit more like himself, a bit more masculine, a bit more like the character in the drawing. So I think I get most of the issues down that are kind of causing the lack of lightness. So widening his chin, widening his forehead, building up in that shadow line next to the corner of his mouth. So yeah, I think I fixed a lot of it, so that's really good. So now I'm just doing the overlay again for my final drawing, just to kind of see what final bits I need to fix. So again, you can do this as often as you like in the process. And I think sometimes if you can't quite figure out what's wrong, this will really help clarify things. It can be frustrating, especially if you find out this late on that something is really wrong. Despite doing that check early doors, it can be a bit of a pain, but I guess it's at that point you decide whether you want to fix things or not. So you can see really it's only very subtle changes, so a few millimetres out here and there, but it has completely changed the appearance of this guy's face. So yeah, I think that's why portraits are so challenging, huh? So here I spotted that dark line under his bottom lip I'd got in the wrong place, by about a millimetre again, which actually is a significant difference in such a small drawing. So again, just fixing that. So you can see I am using the overlay tool quite a bit. I think that's usually when I have a specific area I need to fix. I'll just focus in on that on the overlay tool rather than looking at the whole picture. So I think something about his nose looks a little wrong, so then I bring up the overlay and just kind of scroll between the two just to see what's wrong about it. I'm actually using this a lot more than I usually do. I think it is because the fact that the likeness is not there, and that's bugging me, to be honest. So just trying to figure out why it's not there. And I mean, this is a really interesting exercise, isn't it? Like, why can you sometimes get it wrong and there's still likeness, and why can sometimes you get it only a tiny bit out and then you lose the likeness? I guess by going through that process a few times, you learn what's important in terms of likeness and where you need to be accurate and where you can afford to be a bit flexible. Right, so now we've got the drawing down, I'm finally getting over to the smudging portion. So here I'm using my blending stump just to knock back the areas of darkness. That unifies a little bit, so when you use a charcoal pencil you can see the white of the page comes through. So by using the stump I'm unifying that dark area to get an even darker shade. I'm also watching for where those edges are softer and using the stump to kind of blend the transition from dark to light a little bit. But yeah, it's quite important in the background to kind of knock it back, and in the dark areas just to go over and stump it. Because that's the only way you can achieve those darks really, without, using your charcoal pencil really hard on the page. So yeah, you can sort of see I'm using it almost like a pencil in some places. You don't want to over smudge it, so you don't want to use the stump brush for like bringing in all your shadows or your mid-tones, because it can look a bit smudgy. So I think it's using it selectively. But yeah, very important to use it to unify those dark areas as well. And just watching out for the drawing where you're getting those really kind of like you can see on this roll neck on the left hand side, there's a very kind of smooth grey tone there that doesn't look like it's got any hatching. Same with the jacket where it meets his polo neck on the right hand side as you look at the picture. Those areas are very like smooth and grey, so those almost look like they've been smudged in. So that's kind of what I'm looking out for in the picture, is where there's grey tones that look like they're more smudged in rather than hatched in. Maybe trying to replicate those. I think what I find is the smoother you can make the face, then it really stands out against that really dark hatchy background, that really dark rough background. So I just watch out for that, the difference in textures, and just try and replicate it as best I can. Also those lost edges, so underneath his ear you can see there's a bit of a lost edge between the bottom of his earlobe and the neck and the jaw. There's a lost line there, so just kind of trying to find those and make sure those areas are blended in nicely as well. So sometimes if I want a really sharp, I want to really erase a really small area, then I'll just cut off the end of my eraser and that gives me a really sharp line. So that's just what you saw there. I probably shouldn't cut it against your finger, so don't copy me in that respect. But use a cutting board. I've just got a bit of a blank craft knife, that's one of my excuses. So here I'm suffering from not using a sharp pencil. You can see my pencil's now become quite blunt and I'm still using it to do those tiny details around the eye. I'm usually quite good at sharpening my pencils. I think it was just having the camera on me while I was drawing put me off a stride a little bit. So instead of working with a nice sharp pencil for precise lines, I'm working with something really quite blunt, which keeps putting the marks in the wrong place and making my life difficult. But hey, it's all fun challenge. One thing to notice is I didn't actually start smudging my drawing until quite late on, until I was happy with the end of drawing. I think the danger is if you start too early, then you can do too much with a smudge brush and too little with a pencil. So just put off getting started with the smudging until you're really happy that everything's where it needs to be. I mean, obviously there's still an opportunity to change things, but I also think once that pencil's been really smudged into the paper, it can be a bit more difficult. So it's yeah, I mean, it's quite a fun stage, smudging everything together and unifying it, but I think sometimes good to leave that till a bit later.
I found really interesting about watching this back is you can see my reflection in the clip that's next to the book, and I am looking backwards and forwards. I mean, the video is sped up, so it's double speed, but I'm just constantly looking backwards and forwards. You can see in the video my head clicking between the two pictures. I don't even think I really realise just how much I do it, but my head is constantly going backwards and forwards, comparing the pictures. I think especially too at this late stage, just trying to get those last adjustments in place. I think sometimes your eyes are better than an app like Overlay once you're getting to these kind of tiny final details. But yeah, I just thought that was quite funny. Just adding back in some hatching into those areas I've maybe over smudged a little bit. I think if you look closely, a lot of Sargent's drawings, as you see those hatch marks in the shaded areas, I think it just gives the pictures a little bit more interest. So yeah, I think that's kind of why I go in and add those in at the end. If you're really trying to just look very closely at the picture, and which it can be difficult with a picture like this one, which is quite poor quality. It's a lot easier with the high resolution pictures of his drawings, but I think once you've done a few of his master studies, you start to get a feel for his technique as well. So you almost don't need to have a very high resolution image to try and reproduce one of his master studies as well, which is quite interesting. I don't think I'm quite there yet with this one, but certainly getting there. One thing I really love about Sargent's drawings is the way he does hair. It's often the star of the show. The hair's usually quite smudged, and there's quite high contrast in the hair, so it really brings out the highlights. So you see a lot of smudging, a lot of contrast in the hair. So that's something not to kind of ignore, I think, is really concentrate on trying to replicate the way he does it. I don't think I've got it so well in this one, but in some way the drawings, I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. I guess it's just copying it now, but I think it's what I'm trying to do now is move beyond that and really kind of figure out what it is I'm looking at and how to replicate it. So the video's just stopped. Something went wrong with my video and it got corrupted, which is why it wasn't such a good quality. I restarted the video here. I also went in and sharpened my pencil so I can get a lot of those tones in and managed to break it. I really hate it when that happens. So I've just kind of refused to lose my nice long lead and kind of stuck it back together with some masking tape so I can get a little bit more use out of that. charcoal pencil. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now, is just some final adjustments, I guess. I'm getting very close to the end, so pretty happy with the way it's looking. He's looking a lot less feminine in my drawing, so he's looking a lot more like the picture on the left, although still not perfect, but a lot closer. So that's kind of what the last, I guess, 10 minutes of adjustments has been, is just trying to do those last little tweaks that can bring it close to what it needs to look like. So pretty much coming to the end of the video now. I'm just doing some cleaning up with my putty eraser for some of my smudgy finger marks. I hope you found this video useful. I would highly recommend doing some master studies, especially of Sargent's charcoal drawings, and I hope you found this guide quite helpful, so that you've got some steps to follow along to kind of reproduce a similar look. Catch you all next time. Goodbye.